The envelope lay on Alina's doorstep, gold-edged and shimmering under the afternoon light. Her name, Alina Raza, was written in elegant cursive, as if the universe itself had remembered her after months of silence. She had no idea who could have sent it. The address was correct, the calligraphy flawless, and inside was an invitation to a wedding that looked nothing short of magical. The bride's name, Sahar Khan, rang no bell, and yet something about the invitation felt personal. Maybe it was the way her name gleamed against the cream paper, or the faint scent of jasmine lingering on it. For a moment, she hesitated. Then, after weeks of nursing the ache of a broken heart and a life that had become painfully predictable, she decided, why not? Maybe this was the universe's little mistake, one she could borrow for just a night. The night of the wedding came like a promise she didn't know she needed. Wrapped in a soft emerald sari she hadn't worn in years, Alina arrived at the venue, a grand garden lit with thousands of fairy lights, music floating through the air like laughter from another world. Everything around her shimmered with joy she didn't feel but desperately wanted to. She moved among strangers who smiled without knowing her story, and for the first time in a long while, she let herself exist without explanation. She was just another guest under the stars, another heartbeat in the crowd. Then, through the soft hum of music, she saw her. Sahar, the bride. Standing under a cascade of white roses, her eyes met Alina's for a brief, electric moment, long enough to steal Alina's breath away. Sahar smiled, a little confused, a little curious. It was a smile that made Alina's chest tighten in a way she hadn't felt since before her heartbreak. There was no reason for her to look that long, no reason for the warmth that flickered in her gaze. But something unspoken passed between them, something both unsettling and tender. Later, while guests danced and laughter echoed through the night, Sahar found Alina near the dessert table, pretending to belong. "You don't look like someone who enjoys weddings," Sahar said with a teasing smile. Alina laughed softly, almost shyly. "Maybe because it's not my wedding. Or maybe because I wasn't supposed to be here at all." That moment froze in time, two women caught in a mistake that suddenly felt too perfect to correct. Sahar tilted her head, her veil slipping slightly, revealing eyes that seemed to search Alina's soul. "Maybe," she said, "you were meant to be here for a reason." Alina's heart fluttered at the words. The air between them shimmered with quiet possibility, with the thrill of something just beginning. For the first time in months, Alina didn't feel misplaced. She felt seen, completely, unexpectedly, beautifully seen. And in that stolen night, beneath the glittering lights and fading music, a mistaken invitation became the beginning of something that felt a lot like fate. The grand hall shimmered beneath chandeliers that seemed to drip gold, every flicker of light reflecting off silken gowns and whispered secrets. Yet, amidst all that glamour, all that noise and brilliance, her entrance silenced something deep inside the room. She wasn't the loudest, nor the most extravagant, but there was a quiet grace that turned every head, including mine. I had heard the murmurs. Her name was Sahar, the woman everyone desired. The one whose confidence filled the air like perfume, lingering even when she moved away. She stood near the center, surrounded by admirers, her laughter a melody that made even time pause. It wasn't forced or shallow. It was the kind of laugh that told stories of heartbreaks endured, of courage concealed beneath elegance, of a woman who knew exactly who she was. And perhaps that's what drew everyone to her, not just her beauty, but her mystery, that untouchable calm that made you want to be the reason it shattered. When our eyes met, it was accidental, or maybe destiny disguised as coincidence. Across the sea of faces and voices, her gaze found mine. For a heartbeat, I forgot the world existed. It was as if the lights dimmed, the music faded, and everything in between us dissolved into stillness. Her eyes held mischief, warmth, and a question I couldn't yet name. I looked away first, pretending composure, but inside, something had already begun to unravel. All night, I felt her presence without even turning to see her. The sound of her laughter tugged at my chest like an invisible thread. I caught glimpses, the curve of her smile, the tilt of her head as she listened to someone else, the way her hand brushed against a glass before lifting it gracefully. Each detail carved itself into memory, uninvited and unforgettable. It wasn't love at first sight. Love is too soft a word for what ignited that night. It was hunger. Curiosity dipped in danger. The kind of desire that asks no permission and gives no warnings. Every time I looked her way, I saw reflections of something I feared and craved, the version of myself that dared to feel without apology. Later, as the night thinned and laughter softened into tired whispers, I found her standing alone by the balcony, the city lights painting her in silver. For a moment, I thought of walking away, of pretending none of it meant anything. But then she turned, as if she had been waiting. And that look, that knowing smile, pulled every ounce of courage I didn't know I had. In her eyes, I saw not just beauty, but a mirror. The kind that doesn't flatter, it reveals. Sahar was the woman everyone desired, but in that instant, it felt like she saw only me. And perhaps that was the most dangerous kind of desire, the one that feels like home. No one could have predicted the chaos that morning. The wedding hall buzzed with confusion, laughter, and panic. The groom was missing, the planner was crying, and the guests whispered in curiosity. Alina stood quietly at the edge of it all, a guest, not meant to be part of any of this. She was only there to drop off the bouquet, yet somehow, fate had other plans. The air smelled of roses and rain, and beneath the golden lights, a mistake began to bloom into something far too beautiful to be undone. When the commotion reached its peak, someone called her name, but not the way she knew it. The bride. "She's here," a voice shouted. Alina froze. Before she could open her mouth to protest, soft hands reached for hers. It was Sahar, calm, composed, radiant in her ivory attire, her eyes shimmering with something that wasn't confusion, but quiet understanding. Without a word, Sahar smiled, laced her fingers through Alina's, and stepped forward toward the stage. The murmurs turned into cheers. The music swelled. And just like that, Alina became the bride who wasn't supposed to be. Her heartbeat drowned out the laughter and the songs. Every step felt like stepping into a dream too fragile to believe. Sahar's grip was steady, grounding her in the storm of disbelief. Alina wanted to speak, to explain the mistake, but when she looked into Sahar's eyes, soft, knowing, almost tender, the words dissolved. In that moment, it didn't feel wrong. It felt written. Like destiny disguised as chaos. As the ceremony unfolded, the world around them blurred. The petals that fell, the vows that weren't meant for them, the applause, all of it became a distant hum. What remained real was the warmth of Sahar's hand, the sincerity in her gaze, and the strange peace that settled in Alina's chest. It was madness, but it was the kind that made sense to the heart. When the priest asked them to look at each other, Sahar smiled, not nervously, not apologetically, but with the kind of quiet courage that says, "I choose this, even if it's just for now." Alina's lips trembled as she returned that smile, feeling something awaken inside her, something she had never dared to name. The hall erupted in applause as they exchanged garlands, sealing a mistake that already felt too perfect to be undone. For a fleeting moment, as their hands intertwined beneath the echo of celebration, Alina wondered if love sometimes wears the mask of confusion, arriving not as a promise, but as a beautiful accident. And when Sahar leaned closer, whispering softly, maybe it was meant to be, Alina felt her world shift. The noise faded, the chaos melted away, and what remained was the quiet certainty of two souls meeting in the most unexpected way, not by choice, but by fate's deliberate, tender mischief. The night was supposed to be nothing more than a performance, a beautifully staged illusion under the glow of fairy lights and falling petals. The air hummed with music, laughter, and the quiet hum of curiosity from the crowd. Sahar stood close to Alina, her eyes steady, her smile calculated, but her heartbeat anything but calm. The plan was simple, a kiss to silence the whispers, to convince everyone that what they saw was real. But neither of them had prepared for what it would awaken. Under the shimmering arch of lights, Sahar leaned in, her voice low, almost trembling. "Let's give them a moment to remember," she whispered, and before Alina could find her breath, their lips met. It wasn't a kiss meant for the cameras or the onlookers, it was something raw, something that cracked open the quiet corners of their hearts. What began as a moment of pretense melted into something startlingly genuine. The room blurred, the sound dimmed, and time itself seemed to hold its breath. Alina felt a spark, not the fleeting kind that fades with the applause, but the kind that ignites something unspoken, something long buried beneath fear and denial. For so long, she had played roles that weren't hers, living through borrowed emotions, letting others write her story. But this kiss, this heartbeat between them tore through every mask she had worn. It wasn't about the crowd anymore. It wasn't about proving anything. It was about her. For the first time, Alina wasn't lost in someone else's narrative, she was the story. Sahar's hand rested gently on her cheek, lingering as if afraid to let go, as if that single touch could say everything words never could. Their eyes met, and in that silence, they both understood. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't confusion. It was recognition of a feeling that had been growing quietly, waiting for this one impossible, beautiful moment to breathe. When the music swelled again, reality returned like a tide. The world around them stirred, gasps and murmurs echoing, flashes from cameras lighting up the night. But Alina didn't flinch. She stood there, still feeling Sahar's breath on her lips, still tasting the truth of what had just happened. Something inside her had shifted, the walls she had built for years, piece by piece, began to crumble. Sahar smiled faintly, not with triumph, but with relief, as if she too had been waiting for this collision of hearts. "Guess we gave them a show," she said softly, though her voice carried something more, a question, a hope. Alina smiled back, her eyes glistening. "No," she whispered, her heart steady for the first time in a long while. "We gave ourselves one." And in that fragile, infinite moment beneath the arch of lights and petals, everything changed not just for them, but for the truth they could no longer hide. When the truth unravels, chaos follows. The room that once held laughter now trembles with gasps and uneasy silence. Eyes dart, words stumble, and judgment fills the air like thick smoke. Friends exchange looks of disbelief, some whispering, others pretending not to see. But amidst the noise, the cracking of hearts, and the shattering of expectations, Sahar stands still. Her world spins, yet her gaze remains fixed on Alina, whose trembling hands betray the calm she tries to hold. There is guilt in their breaths, yes, but also something raw and beautiful, a truth that refused to stay buried. Alina's eyes glisten as if caught between fear and freedom. She never wanted to be a secret, yet she never expected the world to find out like this. The whispers sting, but the weight of pretending was heavier. Sahar steps closer, each heartbeat echoing the question, is it worth it? And then, as if her soul answers for her, she reaches out. Her fingers brush against Alina's hand, hesitant, defiant, human. The room holds its breath. For a second, time stops. Every doubt, every stare, every unspoken rule fades into the background as Sahar whispers softly, maybe it wasn't a mistake after all. The chaos doesn't disappear, it only grows quieter. The laughter that once surrounded them now feels distant, replaced by an ache that only truth can bring. Yet, beneath that ache lies something unshakable, clarity. The kind that burns, but cleanses too. Sahar feels it, the shift inside her, the courage she never thought she had. She looks at Alina and realizes that love, when true, doesn't always come wrapped in acceptance. Sometimes it arrives as rebellion, fragile yet fierce. As they walk away from the noise, hands intertwined, the world around them blurs. Every step feels like a confession and a promise all at once. Behind them lie the ashes of who they were, two women hiding behind smiles and shadows. Ahead of them stretches an uncertain road, but for the first time, it feels like theirs. The air outside is cold, but their fingers are warm against each other's skin. Silence no longer feels heavy, it feels honest. Sahar glances at Alina, catching the faint curve of her lips, a smile that says we survived this moment. And maybe that's enough for now. They don't know what tomorrow holds, whether love will be kind or cruel, but they know it's real. The world can gossip, laugh, and condemn, but it cannot unwrite the truth written in their hearts. Desire brought them together, truth tore the veil apart, and courage stitched them back into something stronger. As they fade into the quiet evening, two souls, bruised yet brave, choose love over fear. And though chaos still echoes behind them, the rhythm of their joined hands speaks louder than any judgment ever could. Because sometimes, the aftermath of desire is not ruin, it's revelation.